Hey guys! A couple of weeks ago, Kelsey tagged me in the Opposites book tag, so that is what I'm going to be bringing to you today. The first item on the Opposites book tag is a cheap book and an expensive book. My cheap book is The Jungle Book because I recently got this at VidCon at the book swap. Really, it only cost me another book that I brought, and then I swapped it with this one. And the book that I brought to the book swap was eligible, so in my opinion, this was a very good trade. My most expensive book is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone Illustrated. I don't actually know how much this was because I got it as a Christmas present from my boyfriend's aunt and uncle, but I expect that it cost quite a bit, and I believe it's probably one of the most expensive books in my collection. The next item on the tag is a book with a male protagonist and a book with a female protagonist. The book I chose for a male protagonist is Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. It was actually kind of difficult for me to find a book that I own with a male protagonist because 99.9% of them have female protagonists. And I chose A Court of Thorns and Roses as my book with a female protagonist. I recently finished this and I absolutely loved it. I plan on starting A Court of Mist and Fury today, which is the sequel to this one. It's a fantasy retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I highly recommend it. The next item on the tag is a book that you read fast and a book that you read slow. The book that I read quickly is Fangirl. I think I might have finished this in a day. It was the first Rainbow Rowell book that I read, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I sped through it because I wanted to know what happened, and I absolutely loved it. A book that took me a long time to read is Ghost by Alan Lightman. It's a little book, doesn't have much going on, but I don't know why it took me so long to read this. It was enjoyable. It's not like my favorite book, but I didn't hate it. It took me several weeks to get through this. The next item on the tag is a pretty cover and an ugly cover. For the pretty cover, I chose Little Women, which I recently got from bookoutlet.com. I actually haven't read Little Women, and I probably won't actually read this copy because it's so beautiful. I don't want to like mess it up. I'll probably just get the ebook version of it, but I've always wanted to read this, and like I just could not resist this cover. Plus it was like $4 on Book Outlet, so like I had to get it, right? And for ugly cover, I'm choosing this copy of Emma that I own. It is hideous, and I have hated it for the longest time. I think I bought this for like $1 or $2 at Walmart once, and it's just horrific. I absolutely hate it. Eventually, I plan on getting really pretty copies of all of Jane Austen's novels. It just hasn't happened yet, so I'm just gonna have to stick with reading this one. The next item on the list is a national book and an international book. I'm not really sure what constitutes a national book versus an international book. For the national book, I just chose an American author, and for the international book, I chose a classic that is known worldwide. For a national book, I chose Landline by Rainbow Rowell. I actually really enjoy this novel by her, and I know that it's probably the least favorite among her books. I really connected with the main character a lot. We seem to have a lot in common and think kind of similarly. So yeah, I chose this one because I wanted to give a shout out to it. And the international book that I chose is Wuthering Heights. It is one of my favorite classics, even though the characters are super messed up and like just are the worst characters ever. I still really love this book. So yeah, this is my international book. The next item on the list is a thin book and a thick book. For thin book, I have Princess Project by Meg Abbott. As you can see, it is super thin. It's just, I would call it a short story, not a novella. It's very tiny. For the thick book, I've chosen Carry On by Rainbow, and I've just now realized I have 3 Rainbow books in this video. But that's okay because I really love Rainbow a lot. The next item is a fiction book and a non-fiction book. For fiction book, I chose The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I really love this book a lot. I love Sylvia Plath and I love her writing. For non-fiction, I have chose The Science of Yoga, which I actually have not read yet. But I'm really excited to read this because I love yoga and I want to learn about the science of yoga. So next on the list is a very romantic book and an action book. For a romantic book, I have chosen Soppy by Philippa Rice. This is actually a graphic novel. So you've probably seen these illustrations on Tumblr a lot. This book is about the author and her boyfriend's relationship. It's super cute and it like makes me think of my boyfriend, and I love it a lot. I think the tag says way too romantic, but I don't think I had something that was way too romantic because I love romantic. So I actually really enjoy all of the romance that's in this. For action, I chose Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is probably my #1 favorite book of the past year. I love it so much. It does have a tiny bit of romance in it, but it is mainly action-packed. Finally on the list is a book that made you happy and a book that made you sad. And like Kelsey, I'm gonna tell you the book that made me sad first because I don't want to end on a sad note. The book that made me sad is Looking for Alaska by John Green. And if you haven't read this, please do, even though it did make me sad. It's a really great book. I love John Green, and this is probably my second favorite of his. And a book that makes me happy is Pride and Prejudice. Of course it's a Jane Austen book. This book just fills me with so much joy and I absolutely love it. If you're watching this video and you want to do the opposites book tag, I am tagging you right now. I don't know a lot of booktubers personally, so I'm not able to really tag anyone. So if you're watching, I'm tagging you. Do the opposites book tag. I will see you guys next week, hopefully. Sorry for the inconsistency in our videos. Kelsey and I have been really busy and we're trying really hard to crank these videos out. So I hope that you enjoy it and hopefully you will see me next week. Bye! I can hear my neighbors.